Good morning and welcome to the investor webinar for Nutritional Growth Solutions, a global nutrition company that creates scientifically formulated and clinically proven supplements to support growth and development in children. My name is Chloe Hayes, the Investor and Media Relations Manager, and today I am joined by CEO Steve Turner. To ask a question throughout today's webinar, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Steve, I'll now hand it over to you.
Thank you, Chloe. Standard disclaimer, just want to let everybody know that there aren't any forward-looking statements, and this contents of this presentation have been reviewed and released by the company as well as approved by the ASX. Corporate snapshot, just to give everybody an update on where we're at. Obviously, the biggest updates is that we have expanded and continue to be stocked in 465 doors, Walmart, utilizing our core formulation called Kids Protein. That's 2 items on shelf that recently had a store increase, and we're in the midst of preparing for our launch just in the next coming weeks to be a new item stocked into nearly 800 doors that will actually be our first foray into a probiotic and fiber dietary supplement to add to the assortment. Obviously, I came on board as CEO in March, ultimately trying to drive growth and really trying to make sure that we can capitalize on our opportunities with our retail expansion efforts and growing the overall brand in North America. We've done a significant restructuring, and we'll walk through the details of where we're at with that. And ultimately what that does is simplify our operations and ensure that we have as low a burn as possible in order to make sure that we continue to capitalize on our opportunities going forward. Updated cap table, quick snapshot of board and management, and without further ado, just jump into the details. So our beliefs and our drive really is defined solely by fundamentally trying to be leading the field of children nutrition. So ultimately, we have a belief that every child has the right to balanced nutrition, and that by providing high quality nutritional alternatives, we can actually impact or create positive outcomes. Ultimately, we're trying to do this around the globe. Obviously, right now, our core effort is to make sure that we've got the U.S. business healthy and solid, and then we'll continue to look at opportunities in other markets as we get past the point of being cash flow positive. Our ultimate goal is to be the market leader in premium quality nutrition for children worldwide. When you look at the highlights so far for the year, obviously, I came on board as CEO just at the end of the first quarter. We have a healthy and growing business currently on shelf in Walmart. We have a variety of other opportunities in other markets that we'll be able to leverage our U.S. footprint to be able to take advantage of. Most recently, iHerb being one of those where we'll be getting additional exposure and halo effect for the brand outside of the U.S. We have a great technically backed portfolio of clinically tested, patented formulations, high profit margins, and ultimately trying to leverage the strategic restructuring and get to a point where we're nearing cash flow positive, if not cash flow positive by the end of this calendar year. When you look at where we came from, obviously the formulation, the science, the know-how behind our product streams, ultimately under the Healthy Heights portfolio, stems from work done at the Schneider Children's Medical Center in Tel Aviv. This is an important aspect of what the brand represents. It provides a significant amount of trust to our end consumers, and also allows us to basically continue to carve out our space where we can maintain leadership in the category, as well as have intellectual property and strong horsepower as far as science and capabilities that just further differentiate the brand from what's in the marketplace today. The markets continues to be a significant opportunity. Many of you have seen this information in the past, but really what's nice about what Healthy Heights and what Nutritional Growth Solutions is trying to do with the brand is we have the ability to basically capitalize on various intersections, whether it's in the toddler feeding space, actual nutritional supplement space, or even food for special medical purposes. And we will continue to evaluate opportunities as we grow and evolve the brand. It all started and stems from our flagship product line, which in North America we market as Healthy Heights. That's the brand family itself. And the Grow Daily 3+ and Boys 10+ are the 2 products that we've introduced ultimately that are stemming from clinical work done at Schneider. When you look at the portfolio as it is today, obviously my first charge when I came on board to the company a couple of years ago was ultimately to get ourselves in a position where we could actually be retail friendly and compete and have a variety of different offerings in order to segment the consumer's interest as well as be shelf friendly. So this portfolio you see in front of you consists of 4 major product families. We have our legacy products under the Grow Daily line in the blue and in the orange. And then, of course, our kids protein line, both in plant-based proteins or dairy-based proteins, which are a little bit more mainstream. Currently, the item that's in Walmart is under the kids protein brand family. When you look at how our product compares to our competitive frame, it's important to understand that we still, to this day, are the leading company packing the most high quality nutrition in the smallest amount of space, have a very appropriate added sugar or little or no added sugar in contrast to most of our competitors. But most importantly, they're designed for children. So, of course, our serving size is really what sets us apart from the market. The vast majority of our line is 4 fluid ounces when mixed according to directions, delivering a very high amount of protein and quality nutrition in that small amount of space, specifically designed to make sure it works as best as it can for kids around the world. So here's our strategy. This hasn't changed. We're going to continue to focus on this. Ultimately, building on a base of our Amazon, Shopify, iHerb e-commerce platforms to basically look at how we can continue to increase our retail distribution across the country. So it's all about sales velocity. We will continue to leverage our successes that we've had so far with Walmart to be able to gain interest with new stores. We will seek to continue to find expansion opportunities both within Walmart, within different departments of Walmart, but also through other retailers around the country. So ultimately, that's the goal here. That is a long play for us in order to get to a future state where the retail part of our business, the physical distribution, is the lion's share of our top line, with the e-commerce piece being roughly 25 to 30% of our total revenues in the future. Right now, of course, it's the majority of our shares or majority of our revenues for the company. When you look at our marketing strategy, it's all about tapping into emotion and focusing everything that we do in and around the needs of the consumers. So we are going to continue to utilize our custom paid technologies that allow us to zero in to regions where we have distribution and also can garner conversions with consumers and ultimately leverage what we've been able to do thus far and continue to scale that as more and more resources become available. We want to also make sure that we're tapping into and cultivating and growing our loyalty consumer base, which is a fairly sizable part of our business as far as subscription returning customers, which is one of the wonderful attributes of this particular product line, because we can capture a consumer at a young age and they stay with us throughout their entire childhood, so that ultimately we drive a lot of lifetime value with our ultimate consumer base. So the net results of the restructuring and cost reductions that we put into place this year are pretty important. We were able to carve out nearly $2 million worth of existing annualized operating expenses, which is material for us. It's a major pivot, allows us really to focus on the US business. The net result of these changes, in addition to operations, were also related to personnel and selling costs. And so we've made some significant headways. The vast majority of those dollars and cents that have fallen out of our overall burn rate, you will see in our Q3 and Q4 financials, because that's sort of the time lag it takes for those cost savings to be visible in our financial statements. So there's quite a bit of headway that basically provides for us, and it really does position us to be in a significantly better position, as well as be closer to cash flow positive in the US, as well as a corporate entity going forward. We're going to continue to execute on our strategy. It's a 3-pillar strategy, simply based and built on our product portfolio. We're going to continue to look at how we can bolster that, expand the lines, and tap into the consumer demand, as well as unlocking opportunities around the world that make sense. So we have a variety of different sales channels that we're going to be working with. But in the end, our goal is to increase the numbers of stores that we're in, the points of distribution that we have, all built on robust marketing that drives adoption and overall conversion with consumers. So this is Walmart. Basically, our goal here is to target more stores, generate higher sales, and ultimately exceed expectations, continue to build on what we've been doing, and continue to grow going forward. So Kids Protein is in 465 doors currently. We were recently increased from 409 to 465 mid-May, and we will continue to deliver performance to be able to drive to a future state where we get ultimately to 2,400 or more stores at some point in time where that makes sense for us as an organization. In addition, we're launching in a couple of weeks the new item, Happy Tummies, which is actually going into just under 800 doors. It's in a different department, so it's another way for us to help diversify our risk because each of the merchant teams are different. And this will actually go into a category that has a different time cycle so that we'll have the benefit of managing the business pipeline and future life cycle management at different times of the year between these two categories. Walmart's a significant opportunity for us. It's very clear that they are the world's largest retailer, merchant, generate significant amount of volume of revenues potential for us as a business. They're more than 10 times the potential that we could do with Amazon, which of course is also large, not anything small to shake a stick at. But ultimately, our long-term strategy is to try to capitalize on the A and B footprints within their overall store counts, which takes us to that future ideal state that's roughly 2,400 to 2,800 stores. This is just meant to illustrate again what the potential is for us based on our current sales performance with the brand at Walmart. So if we take our existing sales velocity based on our POS data poll just this month, this really gives you an idea of what happens as we increase our total number of items, SKUs being stock keeping units or items on shelf, as well as how those door increases ultimately translate to a future state where we have a significant amount of revenue coming from a small focused portfolio of no more than 4 SKUs, which are within our reach. So that is certainly not anything that is unattainable for us. It's just a matter of time as we look to continue to see those increases in overall distribution as far as total number of stores that we are in. And then from that, of course, it leads us to other business opportunities. Case in point, iHerb and CVS alternative formats all came out basically because of our progress that we've been making. And the more and more progress we make with both Walmart, these other retailers ultimately provide us additional opportunities to demonstrate that we have a reason to be on shelf. So iHerb is going to be completing our onboarding very soon, and we expect our first sales to come in the third quarter. Ultimately, that initial order of about $10,000 translates to 3 full cases of everything in the portfolio going to their 3 unique fulfillment centers. They then post those items in their various marketplaces and evaluate sales in a very short period of time to determine what that means as far as expected replenishment volume. I do expect that we will be able to manage iHerb over the next 12 months and get them to be roughly about $1 million or more of incremental revenue for us as a business. And we're going to put various mechanisms in place in order to incentivize and support that activity as we grow. In addition, we're onboarding and continuing to work through the onboarding process with CVS alternative formats. Now, what's important to note here is we are onboarding to get set up as an official vendor of CVS, which of course does point to some future opportunity to leverage this particular stepping stone ultimately to more pharmacies and potentially a bigger business beyond even the EMOS or the Navarro chains that are part of the Hispanic American store formats that CVS brands under their alternative side. Obviously, I don't have expectations that we will get into all of the stores that they manage under this format. Realistically, for us, it's going to be somewhere between 300 and 500 doors in reality, as far as the banners that make sense for us to work with this. But what's exciting about this particular program is we're looking to create a children's nutrition permanent display fixture in store that basically becomes the destination within the store. They'll be one of the few retailers that we have that gives us kind of a first mover opportunity to push down this pathway. And we will be one of 3 brands in this display that, of course, ultimately just helps to provide significant visibility and demonstrates what we could be doing in other stores, including other CVSs, but also other stores around the country. Ultimately, we're here to basically make children achieve their best potential. So we have a significant opportunity, regardless of whether you look at things as literal as failure to thrive or short stature, but basically capitalizing on the fact that we have kids that ultimately have gaps in their nutrition intake. And ultimately, that's what we're here for. So whether it's for a true medical need or if it's just for picky and finicky kids and or active kids that caregivers are concerned about whether or not they're getting enough. And that's really what we've been able to tap into recently with the brand and why we're starting to see the momentum building with Healthy Heights. Obviously built on the clinical study. Content in the summary of the study and the summary of the results is available on our website. So I would encourage you to go to healthyheights.com or ngsolutions.co for further information. And ultimately, based on my background, obviously I've been doing this for a while, and that's what we're here for. So leveraging my strong sales and marketing background in the consumer product space in order to take us to that future state where we have a strong, growing, and healthy business. And we've achieved a lot. So it's important to take a moment and sort of recognize that over the past 12 months, we've really achieved some significant milestones. We've got a strong foundation built off of what we're doing with Walmart, but most importantly, with what we've already done and accomplishing with our Amazon and our web store sales. And we will continue to drive that. So ultimately, we will leverage that ability to tap into the consumer, drive sales and growth with the business, and then continue down this journey for years to come. Business model is pretty straightforward. We have licensing activities where we did originally license the brand in India to GSK, now Unilever. And from that, of course, continue to pursue opportunities like that as they pop up. So we do have active agreements in place with a group in Poland, and we seek to pursue potentially that distribution agreement in the near future as well as leveraging our business to consumer, selling under the Healthy Heights brand in North America and building on what we've already accomplished. Give you an idea of what our achievements and future growth milestones look like, going back to when we were placed on shelves in Walmart in the third quarter of last year, all the way through to the point of where we're at now. So obviously we've had expanded distribution in the first quarter. We had a leadership change. We made some significant organizational changes in order to basically reduce our cost expenses. We have a new item that was developed that's going to be launched in the very near future, a couple of weeks into Walmart. And we're going to continue to basically support that growth as we go down towards the future state. We have iHerb and CVS onboarding. We have most recently a white label formulation of our Healthy Heights formulation, the Grow Daily 3 Plus, that's currently being sold in Maccabi pharmacies in Israel. And that will continue to grow and provide additional revenue streams for us in the form of royalties in future periods. We've got obviously a variety of different activities that we are anticipating as we look at Q3, Q4, and into the first quarter of next year, ultimately leading into additional distribution, additional sales in new retailers, and continued growth. Thank you for your time. I'm sure there are lots of questions, so I will stop sharing and turn it over to the Q&A.
Thanks, Steve. Yes, we've had a few questions come through via email, which I'll jump straight into. The first one being, considering Walmart's success, when do you anticipate the brand to become available in other major US retailers?
It's going to take some time. Obviously, we still need to get beyond the small footprint that we're in within Walmart. So I would expect that, especially if you layer in the fact that retailers sort of operate and think in these 9 to 12 month increments based on their marketing or merchandising calendars. So we're in discussions with retailers now that ultimately will lead to potential distribution gains for us in the first and second quarter next year. So our most likely next moves, of course, will be CVS and a variety of other accounts. So next year is going to be another pivotal year for us. We'll probably pick up distribution in as many as 2 or more new retailers beyond what we're doing at Walmart. And then that will continue to build to a point. The challenge that we have is we're a small emerging brand. We're a relatively small company in comparison to the resources necessary to do a massive rollout and a massive push. So we're doing this in a way that we can manage ultimately so that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves and generate problems as far as future growth.
Our next question is, does NGS intend to scale up online sales through its own websites, or is the focus primarily on sales through external platforms such as Amazon and others?
We actually do, and we have been scaling our own sales online. So one of the nice things about our web sales through our Shopify account is the fact that we actually, it's the most profitable channel for us. But the reach of that particular account in comparison to a marketplace like Amazon or a marketplace like iHerb for us is smaller. But we do actually leverage that, and it's important for us because it's near instant cash flow for us. The margins are significantly higher, so it gives us much more margin to work with when it comes to promoting and generating awareness of the brand. And then it also allows us to foster and cultivate our loyalty or subscription-based consumers that are in our storefront and in the brand itself. And so we get data insights, and ultimately, yes, we will continue to build and bolster that. I do envision that our e-commerce business will continue to grow 30 to 40% year over year going forward. It's just going to become, in contrast to what we expect to do as we get physical distribution, a smaller percentage, a little bit more diversified revenue stream for us versus being our sole revenue stream, which is what it's been historically.
Great. With kids' protein being stocked in 465 Walmart stores and Happy Tummies to be stocked in 795 stores from August, when do you expect the next Walmart review and further store increases?
Well, we're actually in the process of preparing for our review coming up. So we will be sitting down with the merchant team in the middle of September to basically discuss what next year's week 16 planogram changes will look like for Department 79, which is where kids protein is merchandised. So from that meeting, we will get a good expectation as far as what does the future store increase look like, potentially also the ability to expand our assortment. Because keep in mind, we have a third flavor within that formula range that's performing extremely well on Walmart.com that they have visibility to. So I do anticipate that we will begin the discussion of adding a third SKU potentially to that assortment, and possibly also looking at how and to what magnitude that future store increase would look like.
Once initial sales are made through iHerb, are there any marketing or promotional opportunities that NGS can do with iHerb to further drive sales on the platform?
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we will be doing. So we'll be funding it in a variety of different ways, but again, we provide the assets, we provide the content. They'll actually also be able to redeploy and reutilize a lot of our user-generated content that we've been creating, or that consumers have been creating, or influencers have been creating, or our paid media exposures as well, in addition to funding it with cash resources or margin on the product itself in order to basically give them the cash they need in order to drive marketing efforts on their platforms.
With iHerb having a strong presence in Asia, will having Healthy Heights stocked on iHerb drive other Asia-based retailers to stock the products?
That's a long-term yes. Ideally, it would be great. But the challenge that we have for any retailer outside of North America to physically stock or distribute our product requires localization to that particular country's regulatory requirements. And so what's nice about iHerb is we have the ability to essentially do digital cross-border commerce in these markets, test the brand, generate demand and awareness in advance of having to commit significant capex to basically build and or create a product specifically for that region because of ingredients or labeling requirements, so on and so forth. So it does give us also the ability to create a halo of awareness effect that will come back to what we see in our Amazon business. So we do anticipate that we will see a lift both domestically as well as incremental sales in these international markets that currently we don't have access to.
With onboarding progressing with CVS alternative formats, is there the opportunity to also be stocked in the general CVS pharmacies, which would be a huge opportunity with over 9,500 locations across the US?
That's absolutely part of the strategy and why it's exciting that we're starting with the alternative format. So every one of these little steps that we're making is a potential step towards a larger opportunity within CVS. And so when you look at CVS, the alternative formats just happens to be that particular merchant loves the brand, was very energized about what it could do in her particular footprint, and is going to be leading the charge to create a destination display that's basically going to benefit us, but also the two other brands that will be part of that program. And then it gives us also the ability to basically use it as a case study to say, okay, now When we look at the Health Hub versions of CVS, which brings in another couple thousand doors, expanding beyond Health Hub into mainstream, depending on the category and how that works, yes, there's a future state ideally that we would love to be in all CVSs, and not only CVS, but use that as an example of what we could be doing for Walgreens Boots Alliance. Use that as a blueprint. Obviously, what we're doing at Walmart is a blueprint for what we could be doing in other mass retailers. So you have retailers like Target that are on the horizon. So all of these are on the expectation set going forward. It's just a matter of working through the process, which sometimes seems painfully slow, but that's how retail works. And then we will get to a future state where the retail part of our business is the lion's share of our revenues, generating 70 to 80% of our overall top line, with a healthy, robust e-commerce business generating roughly 25 to 30%, but still magnitudes larger than it is currently.
Sure. So, Steve, you mentioned NGS being cash flow neutral or positive by the end of December 2023. Based on sales through Walmart, iHerb, and CVS alternative formats, what revenues is NGS targeting for 2024?
24 for us is going to be another growth year. So this year, we basically, aside from all the changes necessary in order to get ourselves clean and healthy so that we can continue to move in the right direction. But ultimately, at the end of for 24, I would anticipate that we would see some significant step changes, because obviously each one of these retailers that we bolt on comes with the wonderful luxury or benefit of pipeline infill, which is a significant cash that falls straight to the bottom line for us. That is required for them to be able to buy enough inventory in order to basically get the shelves set. And so we'll have the benefit anytime that we either add an item or add points of distribution of pipeline, that then ultimately allows us to sort of continue to drive our overall revenue expectations. Realistically, I think we will continue to see growth. And of course, it's really going to be a function of how many retailers we bolt on each year going forward, and to what extent the total doors of distribution are. Are they going to be similar to Walmart and take conservative steps where we get in and get pieces of it and grow to maximum distribution, or are we going to basically leapfrog that in the coming year and ultimately get to a point where we actually have more points of distribution going forward?
And Steve, what sales velocity, which is units sold per store per week, is expected in Walmart for 2024?
Well, we're going to continue to push to get beyond where we're at. So the original expectation and what is required to prove that we were basically earned our spot on shelf was 0.5, or half of a piece per point of distribution per door per week. I want to continue to push to get us to 1 or 1.5 on average across our doors. We are currently operating just under 1, and so ultimately that's an achievable goal for us. I'd like to get to 1.5. If we can do a velocity of 1.5 and double our footprint, obviously that's a material step change in our overall top line revenues that we could get from a retailer like Walmart.
Right. Could you please provide an update on the Australian products launch and why this has been pushed back? And where will products for Australia be produced?
So the original plan, and still the current plan, is actually they would be produced here and we would be importing them into Australia to be sold in the independent pharmacy channel as a food for special medical purpose. The reason it is being delayed right now is really a function of resources. Unfortunate artifact of basically having to make the cuts and scale back so that we could focus on our core operations now. And we still need to basically sit through and have the regulatory discussion ultimately to dictate what's that pathway in order to essentially export from the US, import into Australia with US products so that it competes directly against the PediaSure brand on shelf. And that's ultimately why that time frame is going to continue to be an issue until at such point we've addressed all those points, and then we'll identify going forward. Now, unfortunately, one thing that did happen that also added to the delays was we had a distribution partner that was part of that conversation that was fairly bullish and making that move quickly. Their direction has since changed, and those news flows will ultimately come out, and it'll be obvious as to why potentially that didn't work out. So the winds were against us on that one, but at the end of the day, it's really just resources and making sure that we have everything figured out from a regulatory standpoint on what we need to do in order to make that work.
Of course. And could you please elaborate on how NGS utilizes viral and influencer marketing to build awareness?
Sure. So one of the things that's most important for us, and it's true for brands in general, is people get tired of hearing from us. It's much more personal if you can leverage the ability of somebody else that has a group of people that follow them in order to basically be your brand advocate and talk not hopefully nicely about your brand. We've been doing quite a bit over this last year to build a base of professionals and experts of all ages and all calls in order to basically drive our messaging. So we have, in some cases, we have Dr. Bill Sears. He's one of the founders and creator of the Doctors Network. He's a practicing pediatrician with over 50 years of clinical practice, writes a ton of content, writes a ton of books, and he's one of our advocates that really loves what our brand can do for his potential patient population. At the same time, we have fitness influencers that are also out there getting the message because they have a meaningful and relevant story to tell. So, for example, Brent Bishop is one of our influencers. He's a very well-known fitness influencer, both up in Canada as well as in North America, that happens to have a 10-year-old son. So now you have the ability to basically, again, you're getting the father's content of the fitness influencer of our core demographic within our product family that's basically putting out content. And he's been actually getting earned exposure on TV and media networks. Many of the examples we've been trying to share on our LinkedIn profile, but basically in markets where we have distribution with Walmart. So we can actually use him to be an advocate to drive footfall into store, which we've actually seen the net effect because it's, of course, contributing to our sales velocity. At the same time, we've recently begun a pretty interesting push by having influencers that are our core demographic. So we signed on board two wonderful young men, one gentleman by the name of Storm Russo. He's an 8-year-old. He's the leading quarterback in kids football in the country. He was on Grow Daily for the last 3 years, grew 5 inches, and reached out to us to ask if it was time for him to graduate to the 10 plus. And so we're supporting him. He's actually not only an influencer, but he's an affiliate. So he's out there basically sharing his stories and providing us content that we then redeploy in order to basically generate awareness and generate interest in his particular cohort of kids, which happens to be football, American football. And we also recently just signed on another youth athlete that's a slightly different story. So we now have an older child. He's 12 years old. He's a junior Olympian, as well as a running back in football, has 250,000 followers on Instagram and millions of people following his YouTube content, who's also now one of our brand advocates. And so we're basically building a basket of suitable kids that are basically advocates for us or influencers, all the way up through parents, caregivers that happen to be in different professional fields. We have content that's being put out by Marie Spano. She's a nutritionist and dietitian and sports specialist that happens to represent Major League Baseball and NBA basketball teams in the US. Those are just many examples. So there's a whole host of these influencers, key opinion leaders that are basically allow us to be able to talk to at a different level without having to have hundreds of millions of dollars of marketing spend, doing it on our own. And so that's an important vehicle and will continue to be an important part of what we call our social marketing efforts in order to basically generate sales.
Right. And now this question relates to Happy Tummies. Do the 795 Walmart stores that stock Happy Tummies overlap with the current 465 stores stocking kids protein, or are the 795 all the new stores where NGS has no current exposure?
There's going to be overlap. Now it's a different department. So we're going into the traditional OTC pharmacy set known as Department 40 for this particular launch. So it's with the children's wellness items, and it's part of an effort that Walmart's doing that's basically cleaner living, cleaner offerings, and cleaner opportunities as they sort of evolve products within that assortment. So we led the charge. And one of the cool things about Happy Tummies, stemming from the open call discussions that we did last year, is we're considered in a lot of cases a priority brand for Walmart because we're one of the first new items that really fits this entire revamp they're trying to do for that particular set. So there will be overlap, but there will also be stores that it'll be in that we're not in because, of course, we're only in roughly half the count with the kids protein. Ultimately, the goal is get uniform distribution in more than 795 doors for both, and that's just going to take time as we continue to walk down that journey.
Sure. Well, that appears to cover the questions from our audience today. And thank you, Steve, for today's presentation. A recording of today's webinar will be available on the NGS website and social media platforms over the coming days. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details at the bottom of our ASX announcements. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thanks, Steve.
Thank you.